Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. This is the place where we help mission-driven messengers just like you learn how to build and monetize your personal brand. My name is Rory Vaden, and I'm the co-founder of Brand Builders Group, a Hall of Fame speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. And this show is to help experts learn how to become more wealthy and well-known. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for being here. Let's get started.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. Jess Connolly is the amazing guest that you just heard me introduce. And we're so excited to have her on the show because I have to tell you, my good friend and team member at BBG, Laura Robinson, has been literally singing Jess's praises for months, if not years, about you have to meet. You guys you have to have her on the show. And so today is the day where, after months of planning and scheduling, we have finally made it happen. Jess, we are so excited to have you on the show. So welcome.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here. And yeah, just a big fan of Laura. And I know she is just an incredible asset to your team. And she's also just an incredible asset to the world. I love knowing her and love getting to watch what you guys do.
Yes, well, she is amazing. But that's the best part about knowing amazing people, because they know amazing people. And then
Amen.
you meet each other.
hmm
So, okay. So I mentioned in your intro that you've written several books. You're a pastor, you're a mom, a wife. We have 4 little ones, right? 4 kids.
Yeah, they're not so little. My kids are pretty older or a good bit older, but I do have 4 children. Yeah.
But if you just think about that for everyone who's listening, like 4 kids is a lot, right?
Yeah.
1 kid is a lot.
Yeah.
Writing 1 book is a lot, much less. Is this your 4th book coming out soon?
No, my book coming out in September is my 12th
12
traditionally published
books. Oh
book.
my gosh. I only have 3 of your books. I actually have, this was one of my summer reads, Tired of Being
Oh,
Tired. So I have a lot of work to do to catch up on all of,
it's all right.
because I only have 3 of them. But I too am a huge fan of your work. And one of the things that I would just love to do is help our audience get to know a little bit of your journey of where did you start? Like, take us all the way back into when you started your professional endeavors, and ultimately, okay, I was like thinking 4 books. You have 12 books. Like, there's a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of brain power that goes into writing any book, much less that many. But in addition to that, you're running a household, a family, helping run a church, you're speaking, like, you're doing so many things. So how did that all come about?
Yeah. Well, it was fairly organic for me. I'll start in childhood, but I promise I won't go every year of my life. But um one of my earliest memories is I knew that I loved to write, and I knew that I could compel people with my words pretty well. So I always tell people, when I would get in trouble as a kid, the first thing I would do would be to write my parents a letter, because I knew if I could just arrange words in a way that would compel them to not be so angry at me. And so I kind of tucked that into my heart. And then in my late teens and my early 20s, I had this like kind of interesting season in my life where I was getting asked to speak, getting asked to preach at different places, and even actually getting published in different publications. And now my family, my husband and I will always laugh about it. We're like, that's such a weird thing for an 18-year-old to be getting asked to write articles in different Christian magazines, etc. And so I would say, like, okay, there was this flurry of activity from like 18 to 22, where I was getting asked to teach or preach places, or getting asked to write different articles or different things. And so you would think, like, okay, it just went up from there. But actually, for me, from about 22 to about 28, then I went full blown into motherhood. I wasn't in the workforce in any capacity. I was a stay at home mom. My kids right now are 18, 17, 16, and 12, almost 13. But if you heard that 18, 17, 16, then you know they're very close together in range. We call them Irish triplets. But so they were 1, 2, and 3, and 2, 3, and 4, and 3, 4, and 5, and 4, 5, and 6. And so those were some really intense parenting, mothering years. My husband was pastoring. We were leading in different local churches, but I wasn't really working in any capacity. And I in that time really didn't have the margin to it. And I didn't even really have the aspiration to. I kind of didn't ever really think I'd work again. I was in the thick of it so much with motherhood that I just thought, well, this is what I'll do. But in the midst of that, that was kind of the height of mommy blogging. And I was a fastidious mommy blogger because I had all these words to share. I had all these ideas, I had all these thoughts. And so I blogged every day. I was one of those bloggers who would sometimes blog multiple times a day. And so I kind of amassed a following through mommy blogging. Sometimes I'd write about the Bible. Sometimes I'd write about my hair. Sometimes I'd write about the kids. Sometimes I would just write little essays. And that kind of catapulted into publishers coming to me and saying, like, "Hey, have you ever thought about book writing?" And I was like, "Well, I used to a long time ago." Um, and I wrote one book and I realized not only do I like writing, I actually love marketing books. I actually love the process of marketing. Around that time, also, I had what had started as like a fun little small business. I was creating scripture prints on my husband's laptop and printing them at my house. These little pieces of art and just printing them on paper and mailing them out to friends, and started as like a fun hobby on Etsy. And by the time I think I started in March of 2011, and by December 2011, we had done more in revenue than my husband's salary. So we were like, okay, well, this is actually maybe something. This is maybe a small business. So we continued growing that small business, and I began the publishing journey, and I started hosting events, and then I started getting asked to speak other places. And then that's kind of how coaching rose up out of all of that, because I realized if I could do this, I'm a gal who barely passed high school. I got my first F in English in fifth grade. So, I mean, I was not on this kind of like upward trajectory. I didn't go to business school. I had to Google like most basic business phrases, and I realized like if I could kind of find some success and some fruit in the small business world instinctively with what I know, if I could figure out how to publish books and actually get them in the hands of people. If I could lead an organization, if I could lead a team and I haven't had any training, maybe I could also come alongside people and help them step into their gifting and their calling. And so coaching rose up out of all that. We eventually closed our small business. And now I spend my days really doing a conglomeration of all those things. I'm almost always working on some book in some form. I have a book come out almost every year, and have for the last couple decades, sometimes having two books come out in a year. And we're leading our church that my husband and I planted almost 13 years ago here in Charleston. And I lead a small business here now called Go and Tell Gals, where we coach women in all of these different formats. So it actually happened pretty organically, and I that's all to say the origin story really was mommy blogging.
Yeah, there's 2 things that you said that stick out to me that I think is really important for everyone who's listening, even though, everyone who's listening, your journey is gonna be unique to what we're talking about today. But I think there's two themes that you said are really important is, 1, I blogged every day. Like, there was a consistency. There is a like, when you say you blogged every day, for how long?
Oh, it's funny, I was just talking to my kids about it this weekend because they were like, "Tell us about the vlogging, like, what was that like?" I would say, I blogged every day for 10 years, and this was, like, before people realized you could make money blogging, so I just did it for free. I was just showing up to serve and talk to my audience.
Uh-huh. I think that's
So, yeah.
it's a timeless message that we cannot hear enough, that consistency matters and
Yeah,
that you did it out of service and that
yeah,
you did 10 years before you were even making money at it. Like, this was just something that I was like, I feel called to do this. I enjoy doing this and I'm going to
yeah,
do it every single day. And I think that's true for all of us. It's like if we just stay consistent at something, it's like there's a little bit of truth to just outlasting everyone else. There's a little bit of truth of just showing
absolutely.
up, being of service to people, regardless of what everyone else is doing. It's amazing what happens when you actually just do that. But you're
Yeah,
talking about for 10 years, you blogged
yeah,
every.
yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, it's interesting, even now when I'll have a book launch, I think I don't I don't know how many Instagram followers I have, maybe I genuinely don't know, 130,000, something like that. I've got, you know, a large email list, and I'm now like blog on Substack, and I'm, on different platforms. But what's interesting is I would say there's about 10,000 people, 10,000 women that I feel like have pretty much been with me since almost 2007, you know, that I've been like spending time with in some capacity. And as an author, I would just encourage, a lot of times when we're looking at publishing books or getting in pre-orders, like 10,000 book sales is like a really strong pre-order number that's going to serve an author, for the long haul. And I would say because I've invested in that 10,000 group of women for now genuinely almost 20 years, just showing up, hopping on the phone with them, taking calls. Of those 10,000 women, I've got women who will like stop into Charleston to see me on vacation, or like, there's probably, I would say at least 500 of them that if I saw their face in a crowd, I would know them. I know their name because we've been interacting on the internet for that long. And so to some degree, almost anything I put out, that core group of women is going to be with. But it has been almost 20 years of investment.
And I think that out of like almost out of everything you said, which there was a lot, I have like 10 questions from just what you shared with, how you started to where you are. But that's probably the most important thing is just realizing like relationships take investment. And regardless of what we hear today, relationships are still how businesses grow. It's still how content is received. It's still how book
Yeah.
launches happen, regardless of what we think. Having real life connection and real life relationships because you've been at it for a long
Mhm.
time, serving people, getting to know them, connecting with them. It's not all about paid ads and trying to convert
Right.
strangers on the internet. It's about how can I reach someone and serve
Yeah.
them, know them, and do it consistently over the course of time.
Mhm.
Those are just things we cannot hear enough because there's so much noise out there talking about, you know, this funnel and this challenge and this. And it's like, have a six-figure launch with a bunch of strangers on the internet. And it's like, does that really work consistently? Right. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of what you said that I think is really impactful of y'all. It takes time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's okay because I imagine that 10 years of blogging every single day made you a phenomenal writer.
It certainly honed my ability to get 500 to 1,000 words out every single day. So that's the other thing. People will say like, "How have you written that many books?" And I'm like, "Well, I just write 500 to 1,000 words every day," which actually is about 40 minutes of writing. But you write 1,000 words a day for 2 months, and that's a manuscript. That's 60,000 words.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the average
yeah,
manuscript today is like 52,000 words, and that's like exactly in that time frame. But again, it's about honing the craft. You got to do it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
got to do it again and again and again. So I love that. Okay, the second thing you said that I'd love for you to talk a little bit about is it wasn't just that I loved writing; I loved marketing the book.
Yes.
That's something a lot of authors possess. I think a lot of people go, all the work is in the writing of the book. And
Yep.
then they're like, oh, I'm done. But
Yep.
really, it's, just part one is done. Now, the marketing and the selling is actually how you get people to know about the book. So, what have you learned about marketing the book that you did not know when you started? And if somebody was out there going, I want to write a book or I'm about to launch a book, when it comes to actually marketing and selling books, getting it in the hands of people,
Mhm.
it has worked for you that
Oh,
maybe hear very often.
I love this question. So, okay, here's the first thing I'll say, and I'll just encourage anyone who is excited about writing a book or maybe even like running their own business or, loves running their own brand and doesn't enjoy marketing or doesn't enjoy promoting themselves or showing up on social media. I think the biggest thing that has served me is that I see marketing as a way to serve, and I will also say, I also see using social media as a privilege. women who were doing what I am doing 20, 30, 40 years ago. First of all, they weren't getting book deals. Second of all, if they were having to do so much more legwork. I think all the time about Lisa Turkhurst. You know, she's one of the foremost, you know, female authors who's Christian authors who's still publishing today. She puts out a book every year, every other year. And I have heard just incredible stories about Lisa 20, 25 years ago. She was doing things like mailing newsletters to everyone in her city, like, hey, I'd love to come speak at your church. I'd love to come to your event. The fact that we just get to show up, pick up our phones, turn them on, and serve people immediately, that we should see that as such a privilege. We
Yes.
should be so honored that we get to use social media. And so I would say that as number one. Number two, the same thing about marketing is that I like you, I hear from so many authors who are like, oh, this is not my favorite part. I don't love this part. I just like the writing. And so I would say, if you are going to spend the time of your life to write 50 to 60,000 words, you should hope and pray that they are going to have a life changing positive effect on someone's life. And if you believe that, if you say, like, I wanted to write this book because I actually want to create and cultivate a positive life giving change in the reader's life, then wouldn't you want to get that in as many hands as possible? Wouldn't you want to serve as many people as possible? So I would say that's number two. And then number three, then the kind of like the back end thing I hear is like, yes, but I hate promoting myself. And I would say, if I'm honest, I don't feel like I have promoted myself one single day of marketing. I don't want to promote myself. I'm not the product. What I do want to do is communicate with people about what I believe will serve them and help them live more fully awake. And so, talk about the problem, talk about the promise, talk about how this book or this product or this idea is actually going to create lasting change in their life. And then you're never promoting you. You're actually talking about them. You're actually talking about this problem or this issue in their lives. So those things have typically helped me a ton, just kind of conceptually with book marketing. But the biggest thing I would say is that I spend a significant amount of time before I ever start writing my book thinking about my reader, thinking about their pain points, describing their pain points in different ways. I spend a lot of time listening to my reader, asking her, what is hard for you about this? What does this look like in your life? How does it manifest in the way that it shows up, the problem? And so, really, when I'm marketing my book, all I'm doing is mirroring back what I've heard her say. That this is what is difficult for her. This is what is hard for her. This is where she feels stuck. This is where she doesn't know what to do. This is where she feels in the dark. And then when I'm talking about the book, I'm only talking about it as a pathway, really, to serve her to get out of that, to make some steps forward. So yeah, that's I would say the number one thing that has helped me love marketing is thinking about my who, getting obsessed with her and listening to her, spending a lot of time not just guessing about what's hard for her or what's difficult for her, but listening to her and then trying to serve her not only in the writing of the book, but in the marketing of the book.
Okay, I love that, and that's so in alignment. We believe the exact same thing, and we talk about, your ideal avatar, your who. It's a huge part of our recent book that came out, and so I know a lot of people who are listening to our show know our version of like what we talk about when it's
Yeah.
creating your who and your avatar. But I'd love for you to share, like, how did you find your who? Because I think
Mhm.
some people check off that exercise as a quick checkbox. They're like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that." Right? I know the demographics. I did the psychographics. I've done that exercise before. And
Yeah.
there's that, and then there's so much more. So when
Yeah.
you say her, right? I know
Mhm.
her and I'm focused on what problems she has, like that tells me like you have an intimate relationship with this person that you know you can help, that you can serve. And I think a lot of us who are struggling with our business or our messaging or what problem, it's all because we don't have a deep understanding of our who. So, in your words, what is a who and how did you find yours?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll speak specifically to book writing as an illustration. So before I ever start writing, I'm gonna do an avatar-esque, exploration where I'm gonna write about my primary reader, my secondary reader, and my tertiary reader. And these are going to be women who are in similar demographics, but are going to have slightly different pain points. I'll use my book Breaking Free from Body Shame as an example. So when I wrote Breaking Free from Body Shame, I wrote to kind of three different readers. My primary reader was a woman who, what felt like every woman. She had been on a diet since she was in her teens. She grew up in diet culture. Maybe she's serving in the church. Maybe she's a leader. Maybe she has been to Bible studies or gone to Bible studies, and she's been on a bunch of different diets, but she's never combined these two ideas. She's never like tried to figure out where her faith and her concept of her body image come to pass. So she would be my primary reader. I'm going to mostly talk to her. Well, for me, when I was prepping and kind of doing that avatar experience, my secondary reader would actually be somebody who was really more in a diagnosable place of having an eating disorder. Maybe a therapist has said, like, "Hey, you actually have this condition." She has actual disordered eating behaviors or different behaviors in her past or maybe even in her present that would kind of put her in a slightly different category, and she's looking for some more in-depth healing. Why that's important to note is because she's not necessarily my primary reader. Not the bulk of my audience is going to have a diagnosis of that sort, but I have to consider her constantly in my writing because I want the book to be safe for her. I want it to be palatable for her. I don't want her to feel triggered in any sort of way. And then for that book, for example, my tertiary reader was someone who is maybe really well versed in body image, body freedom. Maybe she's been a part of the body positivity movement. I think when I did some writing about this tertiary reader for this book, I would say like she listens to Lizzo. She's down with body positivity, but she doesn't know at all what that would have to do with her faith. She's never connected those ideas. And so I'm really considering all three of those women as I write. Now the key is, and I want to like really clearly answer your question. The key is, and what I actually find many authors do wrong, and what I find many entrepreneurs struggle with as well, is that they no longer surround themselves with the people they're serving. And so there are a lot of things that are really complex for me about being a multi-missional woman. It is not easy to be a local church pastor and someone who travels to teach and write, who still coaches women, who still might get, a desperate Instagram DM from someone who's struggling. And I might say, like, let me hop on the phone with you. Can I give you a call today? I could easily say, like, no, you know what? I've gotten to this place in my career where I'm going to set a lot of boundaries. I'm just going to do what I'm great at and I'm going to be excellent. And I'm only going to actually interact with other people who do what I do and who are excellent and who have large platforms and who are phenomenal leaders. That's what a lot of people do. And that's actually like the pinnacle for a lot of people. They feel like once I'm, friends with people who are very successful, then I will just be kind of sequestered off and I'll be great and I'll be famous and it'll be awesome. The problem is that you no longer have access to real people. You don't know who you're serving and you don't know what their problem is. So it's incredible to sit in a room and identify your avatar. Then you have to keep meeting with them. Then you have to keep loving them. You can't also like put yourself on a pedestal and see like, okay, I'm the one serving them and they're beneath me. You actually have to love them. You have to do life with them. You have to be surrounded by people who are struggling with the problem that your product or your book or your brand is seeking to solve. And that's what I find so many, specifically authors, stop doing, but also I think entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, like honestly, that's so, so, so good because even most of us do it unintentionally. And,
Totally.
whenever you were talking, it made me think about just how like corporate, like giant corporations and corporate entities, they lose touch with the end user because the business they started where everyone was more entrepreneurial and everyone was engaging. It's like all of a sudden you're kind of climbing this corporate ladder and you don't
Yeah.
even know these people anymore. Like you don't even know what they
Right.
struggle with. And when people say, well, they're out of touch with reality, it's like, it's this right here. This is what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
I see that happens on a leadership level when you're no longer engaging as like an owner with your frontline employees. It's like
Yeah,
it goes kind of the same way with not just your readers or customers, but also with your team members. And so
absolutely.
what do you do, like, tactically? Like, what do you do to stay in front of and engaged and in relation with your who?
Yeah. I think I think staying accessible, and I would say staying humbly accessible feels really important. And so again, kind of across all these platforms. I mean, even similarly in the church world, like it can be very typical to go to a church where a pastor is up on a pedestal and like maybe he has his own community and he has his own people, but like you're not ever gonna get to speak to them. Something that's super important to my husband and I is like we want to be in actual groups at our church that we are not leading for perpetuity. Because we want to be in community with people. We want to stay in community with people. And we actually believe to some degree, if you don't step on that pedestal, people won't treat you weird. There's a little bit less pressure going on. And so I
Mm,
would say I do the same thing, or I try to do the same thing across platforms. When I go to a speaking engagement, you are not going to catch me back in the green room 90% of the time with the other speakers. I want to be out with the women. I want to be out with the people. I want to be hearing what's going on with them. And I want to be sitting with them. I want to be praying with them. I want to be learning from other communicators in the same way that they are, because that is how I'm going to grow. I want to be sitting with the teams also at the events that I go to and learning from them and growing with them. And then similarly on social media, I understand there are a lot of different reasons why people might set boundaries and not read DMs or not respond to them, et cetera. And in full transparency, I have someone who has to help me with DMs, because I want to be loving to people and I don't want to miss really important things. But we have a healthy system where she can flag certain things or send me a screenshot of something and say like, I really feel like you're going to want to see this, or you're going to want to respond to this, or you might even want to give this woman a call. I know you don't know her, but she's just been really transparent with you. And so I think staying humbly accessible to people and saying like I'm not aloof, I'm not off in some glass house where you can't reach me, but I'm gonna be in this with you. I'm gonna be a leader from in the midst has really helped me, and again just also helped me to stay healthy. I
yeah.
know so many people who do what we do, who host podcasts, who are thought leaders, who just they feel pressure, they feel like they're on a pedestal. They're constantly worried about getting canceled. They're constantly worried about making a misstep. And there's some safety to staying normal and not getting on the pedestal for our own souls.
That's so good. And like I think it's important. You said it's okay to have some boundaries and it's okay to get support and help and be transparent and all of that. But at the same time, be in it,
Yep.
right? It's not something you outsource. You can get support, you can have boundaries, but you got to stay in it. You know, I think this is like a really important thing because I think you're right. I think a lot of people, as they have a little bit more success, whether they have a big book come out, their business grows, their speaking career takes off, doesn't matter whatever it is, right? Whatever it is,
Mhm.
get a promotion in a corporate environment, make a long list of things. But at some point, it's like you you kind of like almost remove yourself
Yeah.
from the relationship of the people that you actually started the whole thing for.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear from you, like, why does that happen? Like, what have you seen for everyone who's listening who's going, oh, yeah, that's me. I'm totally out of touch. Or
Yeah.
listening going, okay, how do I make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah. I think I think the main reason it happens, and again, yeah, just to give a massive dose of grace to people who might say like, "Oh, I assumed that would happen," or I'm noticing maybe that has happened. Um, I would say the main reason it happens is it's a cultural phenomenon that we didn't start. We don't choose it. We perceive like this is the conveyor belt. This is how it's supposed to go. And so I would just say like, yeah, just a massive like shame off you to anyone who's feeling like, oh, I think that's me. Like you didn't choose it. If that was the path that you probably were presented with, it seemed like the most natural path. It seemed like, oh, this is what's supposed to happen. And I think honestly, like there's bigger questions there, but my personal sociological point of view is that we love fame.
Mm.
And we love to separate people, and we love to other ourselves, and we love to other people. But also, I would say my personal belief is that fame is a trauma. And it's one that even as leaders, we have to kind of continually absolve ourselves of, and we have to break off
Mm.
what is actually like too much pressure for our souls and our psyches to handle. So I would say that. And I would say some ways to avoid it is cultivate healthy friendships with people who do not do what you do. And I would say that's one thing that has massively served me is that my best friends in life right now, some are assistants and some are school administrators and some are nannies, and some are nurses and some are stay at home moms. And it's been very good for me to remember that my calling, my career, my life is actually not more important or more valuable in any way than theirs.
Mhm.
And so I want to stay curious about what their lives are like and how I can encourage them and how I can affirm them and how I can support them in the same way that they might do for me because my calling's a little bit more flashier, a little bit more out there. And so I think that's one way we can just stay grounded in a really healthy way is just cultivate friendships with people who don't do what you do. And again, I would also say this is anti most of the advice that I got when I really started pastoring and writing books and stepping into leadership. I would actually hear people give the wisdom and insight like, you need to get around other high capacity leaders, and that's who you need to stay around all the time. There's going to be other pastors would tell me there's going to be a point where you can't be friends with the people that you pastor. So,
Mm.
not to get biblical, but like Jesus breaks that exact example. Like he stays friends with the people he pastors. You know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't say like, sorry, I'm only gonna hang out with the Holy Spirit now. He stays friends with sinners. He stays friends with like sleepy disciples who don't get what he's doing. Um, and then I would also say like this is why we see huge thought leaders and authors fall. It's why we see them experience, maybe even like a fall off in their career, 2 books, 3 books, 4 books, 5 books in, or they go on social media and they say something incredibly tone deaf. And it's because they've just surrounded themselves with an echo chamber of people who all sound like them and who kind of forget like how much milk costs and what it's like to really get childcare when you're struggling and just all of that typical stuff. So yeah, that would be my encouragement.
Yeah, I love that. And it's such a great parallel to Jesus. And, just even thinking about it's like, yeah, like his closest friends, the one who are the people he discipled. It's like those, yeah, because you hear that all the time. It's like, don't be friends with your employees, right? And it's like, why
Yeah.
not? There's a
Why
little,
not?
but why not? And yeah, does it add complexity? Sure, but
Yes.
if it's complex, welcome,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
But I love that. And it's like, don't isolate yourself or elevate yourself out of the real world and real people and
Yeah.
reality, because then you are out of touch and you think you're untouchable. And
Yep.
that is where sin takes hold.
Mhm.
And it always happens in isolation. So I love that. It's like just cultivate healthy friendships. One other
Yeah.
this, and then I want to move on, but I'm curious because I do hear a lot of people talk about like, okay, if we're going to be accessible, like how accessible, like how much time
Yeah.
am I supposed to spend reading emails and checking DMs, and like where does the rest of my life occur? So do you have
Yeah.
any best practices around time, duration, engagement of like what does that look like? Because it can be a dark black hole.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I'm so glad you asked that because I would hate for anyone to hear my words and think like, "Oh, well, now I just need to be accessible all the time. I need to be DMing all the time." I have actually tried to do that, and it has been to the detriment of my work, to the detriment of my calling, and for certain to the detriment of my own health and my own mental health. And so I would say, like, having a rightly ordered understanding of what is most important in your work, what you spend the time on that's going to be the most impactful for the most amount of people, and ordering your day like that, ordering your week like that, in those correct maybe I would say like chunks that correlate to the importance. We do something on our team every week where every member of our team draws out a pie chart, and then they list their tasks by importance on the pie chart. So, for example, when I made my pie chart for the week this week, I'm currently writing my next book. So, 25% of my pie chart went to book writing. Um, and then maybe, like 6% went to podcasts, and like 8% went to different content planning and different sorts of things. And so by doing that every single week, I know, okay, what's the most important work for me to do this week? And then my time needs to go there. So always for me, partially that's going to be talking to people, hearing from real women, spending time in DMs. But if I spend 25% of my week doing that, I wouldn't actually be able to write the book that is going to impact hundreds of thousands, because I'm taking time to DM maybe 13 people, so I'm trying to be thoughtful about, okay, what actually fits into the priorities. But I would say a lot of us just don't know. We
Mm,
don't know, like, what is the most important work that I do? What's the work that only I can do?
right.
And how can I honor that? And so I would say evaluating that and then reevaluating it every single week can be really helpful.
I think that's wise, sage advice, which is there is no universal best practice. We're all
No.
different. Our priorities are
Yeah.
different. Our seasons are different.
Yes.
What's happening in our lives are different. What your audience needs is different, which means we all have to do that work.
Yeah, yeah. And in our businesses, and I would say like using book writing as an example, in our businesses, it's exactly what you said. The seasons are going to be different. So for example, right now I'm in a really strange layered season, that I don't it's not my favorite, where I'm preparing to publish one book and I'm finishing the manuscript of another. But my goal is to get the manuscript of my next book finished before the pub date of the book that's coming out. I have a book coming out at the end of September. So my goal is to get this next manuscript done before that pub date. Because once a book is out in the world, I kind of see the next 6 weeks is for the reader.
Mhm.
It's me talking to her. So I'm definitely going to spend a lot more time in that 6 weeks post book launch reading DMs and contacting women and talking to women who have gotten the book and who are in it, because that's about her. But right now,
Mhm.
I'm serving her by kind of going into a hole and writing the next book.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think that's just really important because I think a lot of people are trying to put in static, standard rules
Yes.
of how we divvy up
Yes.
time, and that just doesn't work for
Right.
most of the people throughout the various seasons of life, and business.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. If like, hey, every week, even you've got to take a hard look at like what does my capacity allow for this week and next week
Yeah.
different and the next week different. And I think that's just wise sage advice of going. There is no universal best practice. There's only
Right.
a best practice for where you are and your audience and your business and your
Hmm.
season, which is a really really healthy way to look at it. And I love
Mm.
that. Okay, I'm watching the clock. And I know that we have a time because I have literally 10 questions that I have, but I know I'm not going
I
to get
love it.
to. We're going to have to continue this when your next book comes out. We'll have to do another
Love.
interview. But I
Can't
have
wait.
two last questions for you. And then I want to talk a little bit about this upcoming book you have and where people can go to get it. We'll put the link in the show notes and what it's about. And although it may not be for every single person in this particular moment, it most definitely is for everyone in a season of life. It affects all of us.
Hmm.
So here's
Hmm.
my last two questions for you. Do you have a favorite book that you have written
Hmm.
and why?
Mm. Well, I feel like this is a cheap answer, but I do think it is. I'll give you two answers. One answer is the book I'm writing that comes out in fall 2026, I love. But I have to say, I usually say that about whatever book I'm writing, which authors should say. If you're writing a book and it's not your favorite book, like, you need to revisit the outline. So, um, my favorite book is usually the one that I am currently writing. Um, I do love my book that's coming out in the fall, and I'll share more about it with you in a moment. But I will also say I have a book that is one of my least selling books It's one of my least well-known books, and the reason why is it came out the 2nd week of the pandemic. And it was just for a woman who loves marketing, it was so painful because it was like there was just no way we could get loud about that book in the way that the world was. Um, but I always say it's for anyone who cares about the Enneagram. I identify as an Enneagram 8. So I'm direct. I am brutally honest. Usually, like my passion is turned all the way up to a 10, and I wrote a devotional that came out in 2020 called Take It Too Far. And it's 100 essentially things of your faith to take too far. So, like, take generosity too far, take courage too far, take compassion too far. Um, and the reason why it's one of my favorite is because it's like an Enneagram 8 fever dream. It's just somebody like telling you, like, don't be scared. Don't you can do this, like, go for it. But also there's a backstory and a lore to that book that is so fun. And it is that I care a lot about writing deadlines. I'm not the kind of author who misses a deadline. I hit a deadline. And the way my life was when I was writing it the year before the pandemic in 2019, is I basically forgot I had to write this book. I just basically forgot that it was on my plate. It was a weird confluence of events. My editor at my publishing house left. And so they never assigned me another editor. And so I just forgot. So I could have gone to my publisher and said, like, guys, I'm sorry. I forgot to write this book. Like, I need 3 more months. Um, but I didn't want to do that. And so I essentially locked myself in my office for 2 days, and I wrote almost the entire book in 48 hours.
Wow.
And you would think that would make it, a pretty crazy book, but it actually has so much clarity, and it is just it's one of my favorite things I've ever written, and barely anyone knows about it because it came out in April 2020.
We're going to help make sure people know about it now. So, in addition to the new book coming out, we're also going to promote Take It Too Far.
Take it too far. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put
Actually, fun story also about that book. My sister, a couple years ago, so that book came out in 2020. I have an older sister I'm really close with. She came to me maybe 2 years ago, maybe in like 2023. She said, "Hey, I have an idea for you." And I was like, "I want to hear it." And she was like, "I think I know what your next book should be." And I was like, "Tell me." She was like, "You should write a book called Take It Too Far. You always say that." And she was like, "You always say that phrase. I think you should write a book called Take It Too Far." And I was like, "Katie, I wrote that book. You helped me market it. It came out in 2020." She was like, "I totally forgot." So if even my
Oh my
sister
God.
forgot, that's how crazy it was. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, we're going to get the word back out. We're going to relaunch. We need a relaunch of this.
We
Wow.
do.
I love that. And I have it jotted down because I am also an Enneagram 8, and the
Oh,
whole
you'll
concept
love it.
too far and also hitting deadlines. I live and die by my calendar and deadlines. My husband's the opposite. He's more of a free spirit when it comes to that.
Yes,
Like, I don't even know how we function in the same household because we will hit the deadline at all costs. And he's like,
same.
"What deadline? What are you talking about?" So I totally relate. I get that. Okay. My last quick question, and then I want to talk about this new book. What advice would you give to someone who's out there who, kind of back to this whole concept earlier, it doesn't have to be a book, could be anything,
Mhm,
but they're adverse to marketing. And I know you talked about
mhm,
the mindset shift and that really what that is, it's a mindset shift of going, this isn't self promotional, this is service, right? But for the person who's struggling to go, I'm having a hard time because I believe that some of the best kept secrets in the world are people who have spent all of their time honing their craft. They are a true expert, and yet no one knows
yeah,
about them. What
yeah.
would you say is like the one thing to think, believe, do, say to help activate this marketing side that is in all of us to some degree so that we can help the world know that you're there?
Yeah, such a good question and such a generous question to serve people. So my team does an exercise we do every single week. Again, going back to the avatar, it is not a one and done thing for us. So we do what we call a who exercise every week. And every week we ask um, 4 questions about our who. I'm going to call her she because we primarily work for women, but we say, what is she feeling right now? What's she feeling right now? So if I'm going to do that exercise, I'm going to ask that question on, a Tuesday in August. Um, so I might say, okay, for me, a lot of my avatar, her kids are going back to school. She's feeling overwhelmed. She's feeling like, fall might take her out. The summer was too short. Did she do a good job? So that's just what she's feeling right now. The second question we might ask is, or the second question we do ask is, how can we collectively serve her? How can we serve her this week? How can we show up? What does she need to hear? Um, you know, how could we be on her team? How could we help her move out of that problem? The third question that I have everybody on my team ask in relation to this is, how can I, in particular, in my role, serve her? And I think that that is something, no matter where you're at in an organization, even if you're the only person in the organization, it's a really helpful question to ask. And then the fourth question that we ask every single week is, if you could say anything to her right now, what would you say?
Mm.
And what happens when we answer those 4 questions every single week is we basically come up with a marketing plan. A very high amount of our social media copy and content comes from that fourth question. What would we most want to say to her? How could we most serve her? And so I would say that is really what marketing is. Just remember, like, don't get bogged down in promotion. I love a funnel. I love a marketing plan. I love, figuring out what are the new fun best practices. But if you know what your customer is feeling, if
Mhm.
you can think about that, if you know how you can serve them, and if you can think about what you would most want to tell them about how you can serve them, that's marketing.
Ooh, that's so good. Don't be surprised if I start having my team do this every week
Do
again.
it.
Like, guess what AJ has doing?
I
Um,
love it.
so good. And honestly, it's back to the most important part of all of this, which is the person that you're called to serve. Because
Yeah,
if you're not doing it for them, then why are you doing it? Right?
100%.
Um, that's so, so good. Okay, now I have to finish taking notes after we're done because now I'm like, got my to-do item.
I love
Um,
it.
okay, so we have this awesome new book that you have because I want to make sure we just have a quick moment to share this. You have your brand new book called What Comes Next,
Mhm.
coming out September 23rd, shortly after this episode will air. Tell us what this book is about and who it is for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this book is for any woman who is struggling with heartache, brokenness, or burnout. So, in short, any woman who has felt tired or sad in any way, shape, or form. And I love what you said earlier. Like, she might not be feeling it right now, but we have all been tired or sad at some point in our lives, or we know a friend who is tired or
Mm,
sad. And so, I would say, yeah, it's for the woman who has just gotten a confusing or devastating call from the doctor's office. It's for the woman whose kid is struggling with something and she's asking, like, what comes next?
mm,
It's for the woman who's feeling burnt out in her career and she's acknowledging maybe for the first time, I'm burnt out. I don't know what comes next after this. It's for the woman who maybe has just had like a long season of feeling down or feeling like she's got low energy or feeling confused or feeling like she needs some discernment. So for
mm,
anybody asking the question, what comes next? It's a 40-day journey that'll hopefully help her answer that question.
mm. Why did you pick 40?
You know, um, I I mapped out the different process I wanted to take her on. And interestingly, you won't see this in the book at all. It was an internal metaphor I used, but the internal metaphor I used in the book, I ended up splitting into 4 different sections of 10 days. And the internal metaphor I used is, let's say that you're in a boxing ring and you get hit in the face. So the first 10 days is as you're falling, the next 10 days is kind of as you're sitting there assessing your injuries. The next 10 days is as you're standing back up and kind of dusting yourself off. And then the final 10 days is really encouraging her to go serve and go help somebody else who might have just gotten hit
Yeah.
upside the head. As a woman who I fell off my bike this morning riding into the office. This metaphor is redolent for me because I'm a little bit of a klutz and I do fall very often. And so as I'm remembering this metaphor that I used right in the book, I'm like, man, I lived that out again this morning, falling off my bike.
Right on fire. Yeah, and I said earlier, it may be not you right now, but it will be
Yeah,
you at some point. We all
yeah,
have these seasons, and so September
yeah,
23rd, we will put
yeah.
the Amazon pre-order link in the show notes, and then when it comes out, we will put the order link in the show notes,
Amazing.
and just to help revive what was potentially lost in 2020, we will also include um, take it.
Take
I
it
wrote
too far.
it too
Yeah,
far. Wrote it down. Take it too far. We're gonna include that as well. That's on my
you're
next week.
amazing.
That's
Thank
so
you.
amazing, so insightful. If people wanna connect with you, what is your preferred platform?
I pretty much live on Instagram. I'm just a Connolly on Instagram.
So connect with her. You can also check out her podcast, the Jess Connolly podcast. Pick up one of 12 books. I have three, have many to go. So there's a wealth of knowledge. Not only that, but your coaching, the work that you guys are doing in your ministry and your church, and just loving on the people who are in your community, Charleston. As someone who does not live there, thank you for being connected
Mm,
to the people around you because we all need that. Thanks for being
mm,
available and staying
yeah.
humbly accessible. I think those are
Mhm.
great sage pieces of advice that I know for at least me, I'm going to take and run with. And for everyone out there who's listening, just remember that when you started this journey, you did it for a who. And as Jess so graciously reminded us of today, don't forget that who, no matter how
Yeah.
go. So stay connected to your who. That's why we're doing all of this. Jess, this was amazing, fantastic. For all of you listening, stick around for the recap episode, and we will see you next time on the Influential Personal Brand.